So let's get started with our meeting. I'm going to call our Plan Commission meeting for March 8th to order. Roll call, please.
Chris Zellner.
Here.
Bill Willems.
Here.
Kristen Runge.
Here.
Brad Zeman.
Here.
Brian Malish.
Here.
Brian Wallace.
Here.
All present.
Okay, first item we have is minutes. Would look for a motion from the minutes.
Make a motion to approve.
Motion by Chris Thomas. Do we have a second? Second by Brad Zeman. Any other comments? Please raise your hand. Seeing none. Brian Wallace, did you just raise your hand or was that just adjustment? Just adjustment. Okay. Tracy, roll call vote, please.
Brian Wallace.
Here, or I should say I, right?
Yes. Bill Willems.
Yes.
Brad Zeman.
Here.
I.
Aye. Brian.
Brian Malish.
Yes.
Chris Thomas.
Yes.
Chris Zellner.
Yes.
Kristen Runge.
Yes.
Minutes are approved.
Okay, next we have public comment. Is there anyone here who would like to make a comment on anything that's on or off the agenda? Please raise your hand and Tracy will bring you in.
As of right now, I have no hands raised.
I am seeing none either. So I'll do my traditional going once, going twice. No hands. Let's move on then. Next we have under new business, discussion action on a request by Arboretum Village LLC for approval of a general development plan GDP amendment, specific implementation plan SIP and condominium plat for lot 61 of the Arboretum Village, corner of Hogan Road and Quin Drive. Kevin?
Yeah, a little bit of background on this. This is a 20-unit condominium that is being proposed in the Arboretum Village. And just as a reminder, thank you for bringing that up, is that the general development plan encompasses the entire Arboretum Village, which has the single family. And then as part of this is the multifamily that we identified with X amount of units. And so we've gone through and they've made an application and I'd like the applicant to go through and make a presentation. And then Ed actually spent most of the time on the review of this. So I'm going to have him speak to the majority of the staff comments after the presentation by the developer.
Sounds good. So who's going to be presenting for Kevin?
Is it Matt? Is Matt on?
You are presenting for the Arboretum Village. Could you raise your hand so I can let you into the meeting, please? Here we go.
Go ahead, Matt.
There we go. All right, thank you all for your time tonight. So what we're proposing is a 20-unit condo, as Kevin referred to. Basically, the access for lot 61 is going to come off of Quin Drive, as you can see. You'll access the site, to the north. There's a drive there that will be 20 feet wide as far as the asphalt width, but then the curb is going to be a mountable curb and it will be 2.5 feet wide on either side. So effectively you'll have a 25-foot driving area. The way the setbacks have been proposed for these 20 units is to allow for enough room in front of the garages. As you can see, the dashed area there will be a 2-stall garage for each unit. So you'll have covered parking for each unit that will contain 2 stalls, but you'll also have then a front driveway area that is going to be deep enough in most locations to allow for parking in front of the garage stall, so that we don't have the need for any parking along that 25-foot wide private drive. The drive is then going to, as you can see, head east and west. To the west side of the site where we'll access units 1 through 6, there is an area of parking if there are visitors that come. We didn't want to, again, have this be set up so that you couldn't have visitors come and they wouldn't have a spot to park. So we did plan for some parking. You can see in the turnaround area on the far west side of the site. And then we'll also have 3 parking stalls right off the entrance of Quin. And that's where the mailbox area is going to be. So if you're living in this area, you can drive in and pick up your mail in one of those stalls if you need to, and then head to your unit. So we looked at accessibility through the site as far as how people were going to walk around. We have a sidewalk shown between units 3 and 4 to take you out to Prairie View, to add that connection from the units, the central core of the units out to Prairie View. And we were looking at a sidewalk from Quin into that parking area. And that was something we, took off the plans at one point, but we've noticed, it looks like Ed in his review has requested that sidewalk be added back in, and there's no issue with that. So we'll be adding a sidewalk from Quin into that parking area there. You'll see some images on this exhibit that show kind of what we're envisioning for the character and the feel of the neighborhood. So we're planning on an entrance sign. We've identified that as Area A. That entrance sign is something we're going to potentially maybe modified from the image you see here. We'll have an entrance sign there. Exactly what the material makeup is and the exact position of that is yet to be determined. As far as the view of the units along Quin and Prairie View, you can see with the 2 center images there, B and C, what we're planning on is some perimeter screening. So that can consist of, shrubs and bushes, as you can see in image B, or some fencing, as you can see in image C, to give it, the character that we're looking for, but also provide some privacy. And then image D kind of shows really the massing or the scale that you're going to expect, or that you'll expect when you're looking down the private drive east and west. It's, going to feel a lot like similar developments within the village. The massing isn't going to be significantly large. This is a pretty, rough picture in the middle of winter without a lot of foliage on, but, these trees that will be planted through here, are going to provide good screening, and we think a pretty good aesthetic for the development.
Is that it, Matt?
That's it.
Okay, just a couple of comments before I switch over to Ed, is that, Don Tierney's asked for some flexibility in terms of moving forward on this project. And I think with his track record, I think at least in my opinion, the staff's opinion is that he's deserving of that flexibility. In most cases, we would want the exact dimensions of the buildings, and those would be tied to exact locations and typically when we see a condominium project of this sort, we would have a lot more details in terms of what the structures are going to look like. In this case, Don is asking for some flexibility in terms of having the ability to bring in independent contractors to work on these. So I think it's going to be a little bit unique, and I think at the staff level, we're willing to give him the reins on it and for him to pull it off. And so with that, I think why don't I turn over to you, Ed, with your comments. You're muted, Ed.
Sorry. Tracy, could you pull up the one diagram that I had marked up? It was the second page of my memo.
Or just give me a second.
You bet. So, the team basically reviewed all the general site concerns, coordinating utility, the easements. They did do a turning template for a fire truck, Veerbecker did. And I actually went out, met with Don, Jerry, looked at what they were considering comparables. And are most of you familiar with, it's referred to as Prairie Condominiums? It's on North Madison Street and Winpoppy Way. It's very actually the middle two photos are of that development. So what they're envisioning is kind of a cottage, or what I would call a pocket neighborhood. I think it would work. They've accommodated and they've met almost all of the conditions that we've asked them to. As Matt was explaining the plan, the only thing that I added that was not reflected on the plan that you were initially viewing is that, and Matt referred to this connection down by the parking area. And then I've also asked that a note be added that these crosshatched areas, that they not exceed 30% impervious surface area. So our concern initially was that the crosshatched area in the driveway, the garage driveways or aprons, however you want to refer to them, we didn't want all of those to be parked cars. So if you go out to Prairie Condominium, you will see they have something very similar where they have driveways in front of their doors, and then there's a landscaped area, and there's basically a paved sidewalk area that comes off of the driveway into the front door of the units. We've also asked them to flip some of the garages in some of the cases so that there was more residential fabric on the buildings, and so that the doors into the units had a little more prominence. So that doesn't mean they can't put some, a little terrace for a barbecue or something, or seating area in addition to the walkways, but what they probably have to do is use pervious pavers, and that's, whether they're unit pavers, flagstone, whatever, that's very easy to achieve and create a nice friendly entryway. So the architecture is similar to what they're thinking is similar to what you see in the photos here. The garage doors. So again, I encourage you to go down the Winpoppy Way. It's a very analogous situation. And that is an actual photo in the wintertime on the bottom right. And it's unfair because you obviously cannot see the walkways and the landscaping into the doors of the units, but you can see where the snow is missing. Those are the driveways to the garage doors. So you see that it's not a continuous, and my first reaction to this was, oh my God, it's paving from building front to building front. But with the changes in these entry courtyards and the reduction of the paved areas, I think we're close to getting there. In terms of connectivity, they've got a sidewalk at the mailbox down near the cemetery. They've got a sidewalk on the west end out to Prairie View. And then they've agreed to the sidewalk connection to Quin Drive. The private roads that serve the garages to the north, those are not, they go up to the edge of the property. That upper northern property will be a combination of plant material and fencing. And those are basically turnarounds. Those are not through drives. Those are not paths. I asked them if they're anticipating having gates there. They are not. Other than that, I think I've covered most of the comments.
With that, Chris, staff would be prepared to take some questions from the Planning Commission.
Okay, sounds good. So I'm just going to go around the board to the Plan Commission members. If you have a question, comment, or observation, please do so. I'm going to start with you, Kristen Runge.
I don't have any questions. I was curious about needing an extra sidewalk on by the parking, and I'm glad to see that that's been suggested. Thanks.
Okay. Sounds good. And I'm not going in any particular order. This is how you guys would look on my screen. So I'm just going one to the next. Brian Malish.
Playing favorites, I see. All right, happy to go. No, actually, I didn't have any necessarily follow-up questions or really germane, but out of curiosity, I'm a little curious about units 1 and 6. You've got an even number, 6 units going down that side. Just curious why those two were split into singles. Not that I have an issue with it. I won't
speak for that. I won't speak for Matt, but I think it was math. There wasn't any room.
Matt, do you want to respond to that?
No, I think we looked at, different layouts here, and I know that when this initially, we laid this out, this is, as all plans are, a culmination of a lot of different versions. We had a lot more singles in the mix as we were coming up with a concept. And I think, we started to consolidate them just based on layout. We had several more units, more than 20. And it didn't make sense. And we didn't have enough space. We didn't have enough green space. We didn't have enough circulation. And so we started combining some of the units into duplexes, and this is kind of what was left. We felt like we had enough room with 1 and 6 there on the ends to still make it fit and work well. And so that's how we kind of landed on, 1 and 6 being singles and on the edge.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, appreciate that. No,
Okay.
otherwise I'm good. I think it looks nice. Thanks.
Okay. Perfect. Thanks, Brian. Phil Willems.
It looks fine. I'm familiar with this. We did the same thing over in Meadowbrook with the condos I was involved in. And down in the circle, we had 2 singles and they worked out very well. In fact, they sold really fast. So I think it'll work out nicely.
Okay. Thanks, Phil. Chris Thomas.
Are these all 2-bedroom condominiums?
The unit mix right now, we haven't completely nailed it down. I mean, that's the game plan, but that's something that will be worked out as each building is brought forward and designed.
I only ask because I'm a little concerned about the availability of parking. Looks like there's just, a dozen or so spots. And then there's those 3 extra spots by the mailbox. Are those 3 extra spots by the mailbox supposed to be used for parking at all times or just for people picking up their mail?
The intent is to have those dedicated for people to come and pick up their mail. But, when we looked at how much parking we thought would be needed on the site again, we know we're required to provide at least 2 stalls and we have that with the covered parking. And we thought that the addition for visitors and then room within the drive to park would be sufficient.
Are we allowing parking on Quin Drive or Prairie View?
We didn't plan on it being needed for this, but I'm not sure right now if it is or is not allowed on Quin and Prairie View.
There's no restrictions on parking on Quin or Prairie View, so I think that's something we can address going forward, if it becomes a problem. But the fire department has requested that we do not allow any parking on the private roadways. So they want to be able to maintain their access. So the internal private roads will all be all be posted as no parking.
Okay. And then my last question was, what was originally planned for this area? Was it duplexes? Or was this always the plan to have this here?
It was multifamily undefined. And so I think this is what they came up with in terms of a project.
Okay.
It was the color orange.
All right. No more questions for me.
Thank you, Chris. Brian Wallace.
I have no questions. Thank you.
Okay. Brad Zeman.
I like the project. Looks good.
Okay. So that leaves me, and I'll just ask couple here. Where do you foresee, Kevin, snow being removed or placed in this as happens during the wintertime?
Yeah, in terms of how they deal with their snow, it'll all be on private streets. So I suspect that they'll be having to haul the snow away. I don't think there's any other alternatives other than probably temporarily stockpile it and then hauling it.
Do we see any concerns with that with regards to the fire? Since they're wanting to make sure we don't have any cars on there, are there restrictions or requirements that we place on them with that plowing?
Good question. I think that's something we can probably add in that they maintain the drive lanes, so they maintain fire access. So I think that's a good comment, and we can add that in as a condition of approval.
Yeah, we could add that the area around that parked area, that might be the temporary stockpiling if there are no cars there.
Yeah, I mean, part of where I'm going with the stockpiling of the snow is I don't want to have any vision problems with any other areas there if we're placing it in certain spots. So it'd be good if we had a designated area either here or they're going to be taking it off site.
Hey, Kevin, do you happen to know how they do it on Wind Poppy Way? Just since that was kind of cited as an example and looking at that photo in the bottom corner.
I think the best answer I can give you is I don't know. And so if I
Yeah.
don't know, it's probably the best answer because it hasn't been a problem. So if it's been a problem, I would
Right.
know about it, right?
Whatever they're doing seems to be working. Okay.
I'm not trying to be difficult. I just want it from a safety perspective. I want to make sure that that is taken care of and we have an agreement in hand at what's going to happen there. Next is what do we foresee as kind of the size of these units? If you can give me more of a better idea, Matt, are we talking about for square footage with each of the units that you're planning for based on your diagrams?
Sure, and I don't know if you can pull up the condo plat.
Give me just a second. You could start talking.
Sure. So, and I'm trying to go to that too because I don't recall off the top of my head.
And Matt, are you able to get exposure on these? I know we set the lowest exposed elevation. Will there be some partial exposures?
Yeah, so we're planning on some partial exposures. I think there's a couple units we may get to a full exposure, but it depends on, the final building design. So on the condo plat, we're planning on right now a mix of, unit sizes, but we're ranging from 1,500 square feet to 2,000 square feet. So that's kind of the mix. And the exposure on these, again, is going to be, they will have basements and we will have, we think at least partial exposure on most of the units and a couple should have full exposure.
Okay.
I think that's probably comparable, Chris, to Village Homes development.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to get a feel for. Yep. Okay. Those are all
Okay,
my
to the
questions.
bottom of page 41. Sorry. I think it's PDF 41 has them at the bottom.
There they are.
Yep, there you go.
Okay. Sounds good. That's all I had for questions. So,
Brian had suggestions in terms of having two motions for approval. And now Brian will need to add in that snow removal, or I don't know if it's a snow removal or just maintaining the fire access during snow events.
Yes, so on page 5 of your packet, there are 3 things that you're acting on, 2 of which, the general development plan and the condominium plat, that are recommendations to the village board, and then the SIP, which is approval by the plan commission. And so, I mean, I think you can essentially just, if you want to, you could, for example, have a motion to recommend approval of the general development plan amendment and the condominium plat for lot 61 of Arboretum Village to the village board, as recommended by staff, including the requirement that the private roads be maintained to allow for fire and EMS access. And that motion would include the staff recommendation that is immediately above it, which is essentially all outstanding items being completed to the satisfaction of the village engineer and village attorney.
okay, so I tried to follow that really closely, Brian. Are you saying we need to make 2 or 3 separate motions here, or was one fine?
Well, the reason why you need 2 is there's the GDP and the condo plat have to go to the village board for final approval. The SIP, I would split out in a second motion because that's just approval by the plan commission.
Okay, so let's do that motion first then for the SIP. Would I have somebody that would want to make that motion?
And the only thing I would add to the SIP motion is it would be motion to approve the specific implementation plan as recommended by staff, subject to village board approval of the GDP and the condominium plat.
Okay, do I have that motion from someone?
I make that motion to approve the specific implementation plan and subject to staff approval and taking the condominium plat to the village board. I think I got most of it.
I'll
Brian?
second. I'll second that.
So I've got a motion by Phil and a second by Brian. Brian Kleinmeyer, is that?
I just want to clarify that when we talk about something going to the village board, it's subject to approval by the village board of the GDP and the condominium plat.
Okay,
Yes,
Phil, is that good?
yes, sir.
Brian Wallace, good?
Yes.
Okay, so we've got a motion and a second. Any other comments? Please raise your hand. Okay, seeing none, roll call vote, please, Tracy.
Brian Wallace,
Aye.
Bill Willems,
Yes,
Brian Malish,
Yes.
Chris Thomas,
Yes.
Chris Zellner,
Yes.
Kristen Runge,
Yes.
Brad Zeman.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Hey, thanks, everybody. Next we have discuss, oh, I'm sorry, we need one more motion.
Correct. So like the second motion could be motion to recommend approval of the general development plan and the condominium plat for lot 61 of Arboretum Village to the village board as recommended by village staff, including the condition that the private roads be maintained for fire and EMS access.
Okay, do we have somebody that would like to make that motion? Raise your,
I'll make a motion to approve the GDP and condominium plat for lot 61 of the Arboretum Village to the village board as recommended by staff, subject that the roads be maintained so that EMS and fire have access.
okay, so we got a motion by Chris Thomas. And we have a second by Brian Malish. I had first on the screen. Kristen, I think he just beat you. Brian, was everything good on that? Brian Kleinmeyer?
Yes, I think so.
Okay, just want to make sure. Okay, so we've got a motion and a second. Any other comments? Please raise your hand. Okay, seeing none, roll call vote, Tracy.
Brian Wallace,
Yes.
Bill Willems,
yes,
Brian Malish,
Yes.
Chris Thomas,
Yes.
Chris Zellner,
Yes.
Kristen Runge,
Yes.
Brad Zeman.
Yes.
Motion passed.
Then let's move on to item number 2, discussion action on a request by VH Heritage Hills LLC to approve the final plat for phase 2 of the Heritage Hills subdivision, corner of Main Street and North Division Street. Kevin?
As just a quick introduction, and I'll turn it over to Dan Day if you could bring him in, Tracy, as I do the introduction. So they're ready for their next phase for Heritage Hills, and that includes the 25 additional lots at the extension of Patrick Avenue. I'd say we had some technical issues that were included in the packet, but overall, we're certainly supportive, and it's consistent with what's been presented in the past for the preliminary plat. I know Dan will speak to the project, but I think he'll also be willing to touch on blasting, since that seems to be one of our hot topics right now. Go ahead, Dan.
Good evening. My name is Dan Day from D'Onofrio Kaki Associates, representing Veridian. Chris Ellers is here also from Veridian. Just here tonight. It's going to be doing our phase 2 in the summer here of 2021 for the neighborhood. So it's a relatively small phase, roughly 25 lots, just due north of the existing development that we've been working on. So we will be implementing that this summer. We are doing, obviously, some drilling and shooting work that we have, everybody's been kind of made aware of in the park area, but we're also doing a little bit of additional work right now on the connection to the booster station. And there'll be a little bit of drilling and shooting through that area also to get that water main connection to the north. During phase 2 construction, technically what we're talking about right here, we are not anticipating any additional blasting required for the phase 2 construction. That's as part of this plan set and part of this plat. That work, like I said, we've done the testing and stuff for that, not anticipating anything. Obviously, there's always a chance that some geological weird thing happens and that we have some, but we would go through any process with the village that we need to at that point in time, but we're not anticipating in the phase 2, anything in the phase 2 construction. Chris, you might want to just give a little update where you're at from your side of things a little bit.
Sure, we're just again following the phase plan that we had laid out about a year ago, and this is the natural progression for us to just keep going up the hill. lot and home site sizes will be predominantly all single family and more of the we call them the Meadow series. So it's kind of the first level of move up for buyers or entry level housing as well. We'll also have our typical carriage lane houses along Division Street, and hope to get going on it here this spring and be building houses on this phase by the fall.
Other than that, Kevin, we're available for questions from that standpoint. So if you have anything else, we're here to answer questions for you.
That's all I had as well, Chris. So I think we're open to questions by the Planning Commission.
Okay, so since we had this come up, now everybody's in a different spot. So I'm going to call on people and see if you have comments or questions. Brian Wallace, you're first this time.
Excuse me, I have no comments or questions regarding this phase.
Okay, Brian Malish?
The same. No, actually, I don't have any other questions.
Kristen Runge?
Same here, no questions. This looks exactly like what they talked about.
Phil Willems?
No questions at all. In fact, I even went out and set through a blasting and didn't have any issues with it.
Okay, Chris Thomas?
No questions.
All right, who am I missing? Somebody's missing off screen. Brad Zeman.
No
There you are, Brad.
questions. No questions.
I'm looking through my screen and you weren't there, but you just came on when you talked. So perfect. My only question, and they're pretty small, as far as this whole thing process goes with this second phase, how many of the houses in phase one have been under contract already at this point?
Chris will be the best to answer that one. Chris Ellers.
Good question. I have not looked in a couple of weeks, but I will. We've only released the select few sites for sale for someone to come in and go under contract and go through the full selection process and go through the full 6 to 8 month build cycle. The majority of these houses in phase one, just because we're trying to capture our costs, are being built on spec, and they're being built up to drywall, which we will then release for sale and let people pick out their some of the finish selections, such as countertops or cabinetry. And so by doing that, we can control the schedule and the process a lot more. And that first wave of spec houses is about to be released for sale here. And those are more of the entry level price points. So I believe, Chris, I know we're over 10 on the other side, but we've only released I think 20 some, and I know we're probably over 10 now. So I'm guessing, just say 12 to 15.
Okay, thank you.
Under contract, but again, the spec houses are coming, which will start chewing up through that other side of the phase.
All right, thank you. The other question or comment really is we had a nice meeting this morning with Chris, and we talked about different things and blastings that are occurring and people's concerns. They're very in tune with those concerns and trying to make this as easy as possible. I guess that probably maybe not the best word, easy as possible, but obviously there's people that want to protect their homes, and we've had this discussion already. But I just want to know that we had a very good discussion this morning in regards to it. And as Dan mentioned earlier, it doesn't appear we're going to have any blasting here in the second round. And hopefully we won't run into any geological problems as we go through that. So they are not aware of any at this point. So that's a good thing. So with that, let's see, we have a recommended motion to recommend approval of the Heritage Hills Phase 2 final plat to the village board as recommended by staff. I will make that recommendation. Do I have a second?
I will second that, Chris.
Second by Brian Wallace. Any other comments? Please raise your hand. Okay, seeing none, I will ask for a roll call vote. Please, Tracy.
Brian Wallace,
Yes.
Phil Willems,
Yes.
Brian Malish,
Yes.
Chris Thomas,
Yes.
Chris Zellner,
Yes.
Kristen Runge,
Yes.
Brad Zeman.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thanks, everybody, for being here. That was here, Brian and Chris. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you very much. Greatly appreciated.
Okay, thank you. Next, we have discussion action on a request by Stotts Family Partnership LLP to amend the urban service area to include 6101 Hogan Road, town of Westport. Kevin.
Yeah, a little bit of background here. So the Stottses are interested in bringing the land in for potentially the sewer, the area that's up next to the highway. So Matt, Tracy, you can bring Matt back in. I think he's going to be the representative here doing most of the talking. And Matt, if there's something in particular you want us to bring up, we certainly can do that. So we've been working with the applicant in terms of making sure that we have good sewer to provide to this area, and then the road access was something that was important. Let me see. Jason, you're on here as well. I may just turn to you after the applicant to follow up with some of your comments. I thought you did a nice job of summarizing those. So with that, why don't I turn over to Matt and Andy? And there's something you guys want up in particular?
I'll start. My name is Andy Kesnick. I'm representing the Stotts family as kind of the project manager for this request. We have Veer Bicker, as you know better than I do, how they are well informed with the doings in Waunakee, so we brought them on, and I don't see him here, but we're also working with Michael Lawton, who I know you're probably all very familiar with. I just wanted to mention that kind of the genesis for this request to be, first of all, be brought into the urban service area, and then the purpose of doing that is to apply for annexation with the village soon thereafter. And really the reason the Stotts family is looking at this now is not so much what's going on at their business, which is doing just fine and continues without any major plans for changes in the future, but what is changing is the neighborhood around them. And in fact, they've been approached a number of times over the past couple of years by the people that own the business park. MLG is how I refer to them, Mooney Lesage Group, and their broker, Chuck Rajinski, asking if they had any use for the vacant 10 acres in front, which is, I don't know if you're all probably familiar with how the property lays out. The image we're looking at right here would be the southern half has all the buildings on it. The northern half, which is bisected by an extension of Frank H. Street here, is vacant. And the Stotts family really has no specific future plans or needs for that 10 acres. And MLG and the business park people feel that it potentially could help affect some sales of the remaining lands in their business park, which have kind of stalled because of, well, for one reason they feel is that Frank H is kind of a dead end there. And they feel like if that road does get extended all the way through, that might create some additional interest by potential land users. And some of the people that MLG has been talking to would potentially like to be on the corner here on the Stotts property. Nothing is even in writing. It's just conversations, but it appears the interest is out there for that. And so it would make sense that the Stotts family at this point in time, since the village has gotten out to them and they're almost an island here, bring the property into the village, get the urban utilities extended, and then potentially down the road, do something different with the vacant 10 acres.
Okay. Thanks, Andy. Any other comments, Kevin, from your side of things?
Yeah, I'm just wondering if
background?
Matt wanted to talk. I know he was on as well.
Sure. Yeah, so thanks everyone again. Matt Schreiner with Veer Baker Associates. So, when we looked at the site and the image you have up is great for right now. We're focusing on kind of all things, drainage and utility design when you submit an amendment like this. And so just to give some context to why this looks the way it does, obviously we know that Frank H is going to extend to the east. I think the comprehensive plan has it coming through the Stotts property, but in that plan, it comes through on the south side of the property. Thank you. And we have shown it coming through more in the center of the property. I think there is another plan out there that shows it a little bit farther north, but in general, we are mapping or showing the road come through in a generally the same location. So that's how we arrived at that road location. The stormwater management for the site, you can see in this exhibit, is kind of on both sides of the road. The site slopes from, Hogan Road to the west. There is drainage that comes through the property from off-site, mainly from the north side of 19. And that then drains through some culverts under 19 and comes through the Stotts property and kind of heads to the west. And so if you go to sheet 91, what you can see here is a concept of how this could be developed and work. Really what we do is route stormwater that's coming from under 19, either down Hogan in some storm sewer or along 19 in storm sewer. And eventually it would get to that endpoint there on the west side of the Stotts property. This exact route hasn't been determined, but the general thought is that the offsite water would be piped to the west side of the property, and we would then allow for any overland flow that would be needed through the site, either in a ditch or through potentially additional pipes or culverts. But all of that routing is something that would come later as the property comes forward and is developed and goes through the entitlement process. Whoever does that, whenever that happens, that the detail on how that water would be mapped, how it would be routed, where the utilities are actually going to come into and through the site, that detail would happen then. We think stormwater likely is going to be at this location. It's the lower portion of the site. So we wanted to show and represent, how we think that could be developed. But I think that's kind of the context behind how we think utilities will be mapped through the site, where we think Frank H will end up. And then if you go up to sheet 90, this just shows how water will be mapped or routed through the site. There's already water main on Hogan. You can see in the lighter blue. That darker blue water main would be what happens on the Stotts property. That water would then get extended west all the way over and connect to Frank H at some point in the future as the rest of the business park develops. And then if you go to one more sheet up, 89, this shows the proposed sewer network that would need to be built to service the Stotts properties. You can see there's already sewer on or in Hogan Road. So a small portion of the Stotts property is at an elevation that could be serviced by that existing sewer, but the bulk of it, I'd say 3/4 of it, is likely going to need to be serviced by this future sewer we're showing here to the west. And that sewer is already kind of mapped out and planned in the village's comprehensive utility plan. Those routes are anticipated, and we're just kind of matching those here. So that's how we would see sewer being brought to the site. And I guess then the only thing I'd add is that on this exhibit, you'll see the red boundary around the Stotts property. And after we made this submittal, it was brought up that boundary should potentially be extended to the east side of Hogan Road. As you can see, the black line on this exhibit represents the existing urban service area. And so that's something I think we can talk about tonight, is if this does move ahead, if that line, if Hogan Road should be included in the amendment or not.
Thanks,
Okay.
Matt. And if okay with you, Chris, we'll let Jason make his comments.
Perfect. Go ahead, Jason.
Sure, thanks. So just I want to touch on compatibility with the comprehensive plan. You aren't granting zoning or any kind of land division tonight, but CARPC, the expectation is when you forward this, that it is consistent with your comprehensive plan, and what is the uses suggested are going to be approvable as suggested. And my recommendation, the bottom line is that I think it is. I want to point out a couple of things that are sort of at your discretion, and then explain why I'm suggesting to go ahead. One is that this area, and if Tracy could go to page 85 to show the future land use map. This whole area is part of what's designated as business park. And
all right, I'm driving this bus, so sorry if I'm slow.
All good. And as described, most of this area is intended to be employment rather than commercial, so more of the business park uses that we see in the interior. But the plan language says that the frontage along 19 can be commercial as well. And as I noted in my memo, the 1,000-foot depth of this property is maybe stretching frontage, but on the other hand, it is currently commercial. And the other item that we're showing in the plan that doesn't exactly match what's in this proposal is that the extension of Frank H would swing further to the south. And the intent there was that we were trying to move it a little further away from 19 to make the distance between the intersection with 19 and this first intersection along Hogan have a little more space. That is something we've been paying attention to in the process, and it's a little tight, but we're not really concerned about it. We think that it's workable. And so that connection just running Frank H straight across bisects the property. Obviously, as proposed here, that roadway sets up an awkward situation with this property if with just a strip on the south side. And so taking this property by itself, it makes it a lot more usable to just bisect it the way it's been proposed. I think my understanding is that the near term is that the implement dealership is going to stay active on the south side as commercial. And so this proposal as put forward enables that to happen. The visibility of this site from the highway has some logic that it be commercial. The access from the highway, it has logic to be commercial. So that's a long-winded way of saying I think this is compatible with the comp plan, and I've recommended that you put it forward.
Jason, just for one clarification for the Plan Commission, is that on the east side of Hogan Road, that's in the joint planning area. And so so it would be the Joint Planning Commission acting as the Plan Commission for that area. So my recommendation is that we really focus in on what's west of Hogan Road and only that parcel that's been outlined above, and not go to the other side of Hogan Road.
Okay. Thank you, everybody, for all your presentations there. Board, our commission members' questions, and I'm going to start with Chris Thomas this time.
No questions.
Phil Willems,
It's a logical infill.
Kristen Runge,
This makes sense to me.
Brad Zeman.
Good land use.
Can you repeat that? I didn't hear you. I'm sorry.
That is good land use.
Okay, thank you. Brian Malish,
Nope, no questions. I think it looks good.
Brian Wallace.
Looks like a good plan. Just want to clarify again, Kevin, that the comment that was made earlier about potentially going to the west side or to the east side of Hogan Road, we would just stay with the current submittal and stay at Hogan Road and nothing beyond, correct?
Yes, correct. I said that wrong. It should have been we should just stick with the west side.
Okay, perfect. No, looks good. Looks good. Makes sense. Thank you.
Okay, Jason, you brought up you thought that it was okay for the road where Ramish. Can you put the map back up, please, Kevin?
I can, and we did, and Kent and I looked at that as well to make sure that there'd be a functioning intersection with queues that would work at this intersection. So I think Kent and I were satisfied, and I think Jason concurred with us that there was enough room here for sufficient queuing that it's not going to interfere with whatever's going on at this intersection.
Okay, and so when you did your queuing and you're looking at that, were you assuming to the east was going to be what type of functions? Because if it's a busy area right in that area, would that not cause us some challenges? with the amount of space? I'm just throwing that out there because we don't know that right now. And with the design with the business park, future business park, what that area is on the other side of the road, if that is a busy usage area, you know, whether, I don't just say, that's where the community pool goes, or a sports complex, or a real a commercial area that a lot of cars are going into, is that enough space for that to carry it? If those functions were in there.
Jason, do you have an answer for that? Otherwise, I think I can, but maybe you're a better person to answer. And I think also Matt, to maybe the modeling that you guys did, or when you looked at this, were you able to come up with a queuing that would be that could occur there that without blocking the intersection?
I'll just make a note that at some point, and it's probably going to be the development on the east side, there's going to need to be some sort of intersection control needed at 19. And at that point, there'll be a study to figure out what type of control that is. And my personal opinion is that it's more likely to end up as a roundabout, which is going to make it more flexible and easier to function relative to the intersection to the south. Those are my reactions. Otherwise, the alternative too is that development to the south might be structured such that the primary connection into those lands is further south, is not the extension of Frank H. As an alternative to deal with concerns at that time.
Okay, that answers my question. Okay, so then the staff recommends approval. The recommended motion is to recommend approval of the USA amendments to the village board and direct staff to provide a status report to the JPC and seek any comments they may have on this matter. So do we have that motion by someone?
So moved.
Motion by Phil Willems. Do we have a second? Second by Kristen Runge. Any other comments from anyone? Okay, Tracy, roll call vote, please.
Bill Willems,
Yes.
Brian Malish,
Yes.
Chris Thomas,
Yes.
Chris Zellner,
Yes.
Brad Zeman, Brad Zeman,
Yes.
Kristen Runge,
Yes.
Brian Wallace.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Okay, thank you, guys.
Thank you for your time.
All right, next we have update on timeline for villages on Main project 701 West Main Street. Kevin?
So we're actually going to bring in Brian, and I don't know if he's bringing anybody else in with him, Brian Sweeney. He's going to provide you an update in terms of their planning process, but we're not asking the planning commission to take any action tonight. We wanted to let you know that the village board has been having some discussions with the developer in terms of potential financing for this project. And then I think Brian wanted the opportunity to really give an update to the planning commission in terms of how they've been reacting to some of the staff comments that have been raised and how they're addressing those. With that, Brian, why don't you go ahead?
Thank you. Oops, hold on a sec.
We can hear you. Oh, and we can see you. Go ahead.
Thank you, Kevin. Appreciate it. Also, I'm wondering if you can let in Ryan and Brent.
I'm here.
Ryan's there. Got it. Good. Okay. So we wanted, thank you. We wanted the opportunity to bring the Plan Commission up to date on the development of the project. Let's see. Tracy, do you do the PDFs or does Ryan do that?
The email exhibit that you just sent.
Okay. So just a little history. On November 11th, 2019, before we submitted the application for the low-income housing tax credit for WIDA, We presented a plan and presentation to the Plan Commission, and there was a lot of discussion about parking, traffic, access, as well as safety. Throughout the summer of 2020, we continued to meet with staff regarding this project and the specifics of the project. And just a reminder, at that time, we added 705 West Main to this site and site plan in order to make it a more workable project. And so in the summer, excuse me. Actually, late last fall and into the winter, we met several times with city staff, village staff, excuse me, Ed and Jason, and they had a lot of great recommendations to improve the building itself. We got a lot of feedback regarding and we added, and you'll see it in the schematics here, additional quantities of brick on the north elevation at the stairwell, at the stairway entrance, added 20 balconies to the site, both in front and in back, added metal awnings over patio doors on the north elevation, added additional parapet detailing. These included cast stone caps at the brick on the south side and West Main Street elevation, and additional parapet overhangs, as well as accent lighting on parapets per the elevation drawings. I wonder if we could go to the image that is above this image. Scroll up. Right there, yeah, number 2. So if you remember, we came to the Plan Commission when this was just 701 West Main and just before we had submitted our LIHTC application, and got some feedback about this design, and we took that feedback seriously, and we came back in I think in January with the next iteration, number 3, which again, this included several of the new items that was strongly suggested and encouraged by consultants and staff. We got some feedback regarding this, that the dark gray may not quite be the right color, and to that end, we wanted to give the village additional options as far as concepts. So we actually have this evening 3 different versions of what you see here, and 3 different color schemes. So Ryan or Brent, do you want to spend just a few minutes commenting on itself? And
Tracy, you're on the great spot here. So what we did is the charcoal color did not seem to go over very well the first time, and I just want to explain a little bit why we chose charcoal. When we first showed our 2019 scheme to the village, there was some concern that it was too colorful, and so what we did when we used the charcoal color is that we just wanted to have charcoal, white, and brick. Now that seems to we had some comments that the charcoal looked black, and so what we've done is shown it in different color schemes, and just wanted to see what the commission would think of if we had the village pick what scheme they like the most. Option 1 is a mountain sage, and these colors are actually common colors in the siding, colors that we can order. What you also see on all of these, just so that everyone knows, we've also made some safety upgrades. There is fencing going to be around the playground. And if you go to image 7, Tracy, image 7 is the Booth Bay Blue scheme. What you see on this image, and you see on all the images, is the fencing that runs along West Main. There was concern about people coming out of the building and being too close to West Main. So we've added fencing not only around the playground, but on West Main, so that we can control how residents move in and out of the building. So there's a green scheme, the blue Booth Bay scheme, and here you can see it on the back. And then there's an age pewter scheme, which is a very warm gray color. So just wanted to see what the commission thought of showing the council multiple schemes. And then one more, the last slide, number 11, there was some concern about kids using the crosswalk. So one of the things that we thought we could do, not only put the fencing to guide people to head east on West Main to the crosswalk, but also have a stencil that makes something as simple as our yellow brick road, and we follow it to safety so that kids understand that there is a pathway to a crosswalk. Under the concerns of safety, we also contacted the Wisconsin DOT about a possible flashing light as you enter the village, pointing out that there are families living nearby. The DOT was not receptive to any additional signage. They actually told us that that's not something that they do anymore. Signage is now limited to concerns that are always concerns, not just plain children. I know we've all seen signs for that in the past, but it sounds like that's not something that we can do anymore. And the other thing we didn't, we looked into a possible crosswalk nearer to our site, but as we looked at it, we have a lighted intersection that's less than a half a block away, and we decided that the best thing to do was to use that lighted intersection and get kids and families down to that crosswalk. So these are some of the things that we've been working on, and just wanted to see if anybody had any comments about what we intend to go forward with.
So I usually pick on you guys to go first. I'll go first this time. And Brian and I have had several conversations, and I think I was the one that really didn't care for the dark look on there. And I made the comment, beauty is the eye of the beholder. I'm just one opinion. Other people may have different opinions on what looks are. It's just like art. Anything could be viewed by different people differently. So to me, I'm favorable to blue, but I'm a blue believer always. So that's a color that I liked, but I also liked the last one you showed as well. That color, I'm good with either of those two. That's my opinion. Now, nothing that is not going to make me hold up the project, but I think that those are my two favorites, of what's been shown. Other than that, I like what I'm seeing as far as the safety features coming in. I'm curious to see what the fence looks like up close, on what type of fence that is. Do we have any pictures that show that?
I think the last image shows it the best.
Okay.
What we're thinking is like 4-foot centers with like a 4x4 post, and then these are smaller pickets in the middle. We're looking at something in a black fence, something that is not too visual. I mean, we want it to be a barrier, but we also don't want it to be a lot of visual interest, because we think we have a very beautiful building, and we would like to see through the fence very easily and not have it be like a white picket fence.
Yeah, I like that. My concern when I heard first the fence was that I didn't want this to look like a prison either. That
Right.
had a fence around it. And then I think that does a good job by having a 4-foot fence. I think that makes sense. So those are my comments. Chris Thomas?
Yeah, I'll echo your statement. I like the improvements. I also prefer option 2 or 3 for the color scheme.
What colors are those that you're saying?
It's like the blue and the gray.
Blue in the last one? What
Yep.
is the color? What is that color called?
Aged pewter.
Aged pewter. Okay, so blue and aged pewter was that. All right. Thanks, Chris. Phil Willems?
I like blue and aged pewter. Also, I appreciate the fence. I thank you guys for putting that in. It makes me feel a lot better about safety. And the fact that it's a little black and short makes it look a little bit homier than having the big high fences like you see in some areas that are about 6 or 8 feet high. So I like that. It's a great improvement.
Thanks, Phil. Ryan Malish?
Sorry about that. Find the mute button. I mean, color palette, I suppose I'm kind of the same opinion. I'm not too worried about color palette. It's not a big decision maker for me. I suppose maybe if I had to pick, the lighter the blue looks nice. I think what sticks with me is it just has a very, I don't know, the building itself has a very modern feel to it. And I don't, something like I might see down on like East Washington driving into work or something. And it just doesn't feel very Waunakee-ish. And Ed, I'm way over my head here when it comes to talking architecturally, palettes, flavors. So feel free to help me if I'm struggling too much here. But yeah, I'm looking at what feels like a pretty modern palette for a building. And then the fence, same way, that vertical black picket. And I contrast that with, you know, kind of the flavor that's coming up and down Q, which I think has more of a, I don't know if it's a thing, but more of a country vibe. You know, you're driving up and down Q, and we've got this kind of a split rail looking fence, and almost more of a, I keep coming back to like a country theme. That's not what I want to use, but less of a modern feel. So I guess that's maybe where I'm getting more hung up on when, in terms of, I guess, aesthetics of the building. It feels maybe a little out of place to me in Waunakee, a very modern feel to it. So not so much color, it's more of a style, I think, that I'm getting hung up on.
Okay, thanks for your comments,
That's
Brian.
aesthetics, not me. Sure.
Brad Zeman?
Well, I'm colorblind, so I don't really care which color you want to go with.
That's
I like
easy.
the building. This is a nice addition. Thanks for the efforts of talking to the DOT.
Thank you.
Kristen Runge?
Yeah, thanks for talking to the DOT about that. I like the original charcoal. I might be the only one, but I thought that was a striking look. I like all of the colors except the green. They'll all be fine. I think the fence is neat. I like when I look, guys, that's a good looking building. They're all good looking, but that's just my preference. I like that there are different, variations in the height. I think that breaks up the building, and kind of the rhythm of the different colors is great. I also appreciate that it doesn't have a peaked roof, because that just reduces the height and the mass of the building. So I think I've probably said all along I like this project, so I continue to like this project.
Brian Wallace?
I like the improvements that are made. I guess I would echo Brad's comments when it comes to painting the house. I want nothing to do with it. I don't want to be picking out colors. So, but as far as colors that, like Kristen said, even the gray is not too bad. So I'm open to either one of them. I do like some of the improvements that have been shown at this point, and guess that's really all I got for comments.
All right, so that's 1, 2, did I miss anybody? I don't think I missed anybody. Did I miss anybody? If I did, let me know here. Chris Thomas, I got you. I got Phil. I think I got everybody. So it sounds like to me that this building really moved in the right direction. Other than Brian, Brian, I would just comment that you're right. It has a little bit more modern feel to it. I think it does have a little bit of the contextual look of the Hovde building that was built. Not that far down from it. Well, I shouldn't say not that far, but similar look in the building designs, I think. With the flat roof, as Kristen said, it brings down the massing and how it looks there. So I'm not as opposed to it from that aesthetics. I actually like the way the building is looking better and better now, as we've made a couple changes. I'm just on the opposite side of the color scheme with Kristen. That's all. So we'll see where the color goes. I think that the only one that I can say that I'm for sure 100% not going to go with is the green. I'm just not a fan of the green at all. So I will vote against I shouldn't say I'll vote against. That's not a color I would like. I'll vote against that color. And Brad, I love it that you're colorblind because it makes it very easy for you. But yeah, I think that's very good things that have been brought to us tonight. And I hope that's good feedback for all of you from hearing from all the different members. So.
All right, thank you.
We appreciate all your efforts. When you talk to the DOT, did they talk about speed at all out in front? Or was it just the lights?
It was just the lights. I think we're at 35 miles an hour out front, because on the city's bike trail diagrams, it actually shows this area as being part of the bike trails, and that it's a safe place for bike riding because of the speed. So when this first came up, we were a little bit surprised by this being seen as a problem when it's seen as a bike trail.
Okay. I'm just thinking that, all of our other entry points are either 25 or 30, that there's residential areas. So that seems like that might be something that they want to consider, because this was not previously. But I mean, we have it across the street, but those are set back further. This one is going to be still fairly tight to the road. So I think it'd still be warranted for us to ask DOT if we can get it down to 25, Kevin, or 30, somewhere in there.
I hear you.
At least running down to Dorn Drive. After you get past Dorn Drive, I think we could probably pick up speed again, but at least down to that point, we could put in a request. Okay. So no action on this tonight. Just feedback, which I think we all gave. Unless anybody else has anything else they want to comment on, just raise your hand if you do. All right, doesn't look like we have any. Ed, did you want to make any more comments based on feedback?
No, I think I've said this before. The applicants team has done an outstanding job trying to listen to us, and they've lightened the building. They've created more of a integrated design, the front elevation and the back elevation. The fencing is new to me. I think it works. I know budgets are always a concern. The only thing I'd like you to think about, if you have an extra budget line item, is to get some trees between the fence and that sidewalk. It would humanize the space. It would make it more pleasant for the residents walking there. It actually would just, it'd be a much nicer entry experience for the vehicles as well. So,
Ed, we actually have trees in the site plan. They just aren't in these drawings because we knew that we were showing the building. So there are trees.
Super, thank you. With that, I'll be quiet.
All right, thanks, Ed. All right, with that, Kevin, I think we're done with this topic. Yes?
We're done.
Awesome. All right. Thank you, guys. Appreciate you being here again tonight and sharing feedback with us.
Thank you.
All right, next is the report on Waunakee Westport JPC items for action. JPC packet. Go ahead, Kevin.
So yeah, it's a pretty straightforward one. They had originally divided or combined two lots into one to build a mini mansion, and now that project's not going forward, so they're going to split the lots back up again.
Okay, is there any objection for any of our Plan Commission members to doing that? Raise your hand if you do. All right, okay. That helps our members to know how they should run that. Next one, Kevin.
We've already talked about it. That's the urban service area, right?
All right, awesome. Hey, everybody, I want to congratulate all of you for doing a great job tonight, as always, with our meetings and providing the feedback that's absolutely necessary. So I appreciate it. And with that,
I make a motion, we adjourn.
motion by Phil Williams to adjourn, and I have a second for Brad Zeman.
You got it.
Okay, roll call vote, Tracy.
Phil Williams,
Yes.
Brian Malish,
Yes.
Chris Thomas,
Yes.
Chris Zellner,
Yes.
Brad Zeman,
Yes.
Kristen Runge,
Yes.
Brian Wallace.
Yes.
We are adjourned.
Thanks, everybody. So long.
Yep.
Hey, Chris, I was gonna say, you don't like green because you have nightmares of Wisconsin Heights still, or is that?
I think most of the people in Wisconsinites have nice nightmares, but anyway, that's just, I'm kidding, of course, Brian. I like the comment though. I like the comment though. I always enjoyed my time playing against Wisconsin Heights folks. That's absolutely true. I mean, when you win most things, that's always a good experience. So,
Oh, sure.
and I love that you joined our side. It was a smart move on your plan. So all good. Good seeing everybody. So long.
Good night, Gracie.